Welcome everyone to our third Meet the Teacher event for the Minnesota Quilt Show 2025. Tonight we have Joe Cunningham, Gwen Hanvey, Kelly McKenzie, and Lisa Thorpe here to present a little bit about their classes and answer any questions you might have. So just quickly, the usual protocol, please mute yourself, or if you're disruptive, you'll be muted. But at the end of each faculty's presentation, I'll ask you to unmute if you have a question, and that's how it'll roll. Trying to think what else. It's being recorded, so if you know someone who had questions or was interested, just tell them to go to Minnesota Quilters YouTube channel and check it out. It should be up there in 24 hours. So I will turn the floor over to Joe and let him introduce himself and tell a little bit about the classes he'll be teaching.
Well, hi,
Go
thank
ahead,
you.
Joe.
Oh, here I go. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Cunningham. I've been making quilts since 1979, professionally anyway. And now for the last 30 years, I've lived in San Francisco. And here I am I have a gallery studio here right on Market Street in downtown San Francisco. It's about a mile and a half from my house. So I get to walk to work and be here. I get to have openings, and I get to hang other people's quilts on my wall. So it's my gallery. I can do whatever I want. Um, so I'm very excited about coming to Minnesota and getting to spend days there teaching and being with you all. I haven't been to Minnesota for years, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Behind me on the wall is my triptych. It's called it's about the war in Ukraine. It's called Mariupol. And for Mariupol, I made a whole bunch of birds that are in the central panel. They're kind of exploding. And then in the panel on the right, where we just were, there we go. You can see the bird shapes are a little more standardized and regular. Mm-hmm. So this is what I'm going to be teaching in Nature's Kingdom, I think is the name of the workshop. Nature's Kingdom. We're going to be making birds, and we'll be making some, well, who knows what kind of animals we'll be making. For sure, we'll be making birds. It's just a one-day workshop. That might be all we get to. But I like to do these things freehand with no patterns, no templates, no nothing. I'll teach you how to make a bird, even if you've never made one before, or two or three. Let me see. Day 2, I'm going to be doing rock the block style. I don't want to make people seasick here. What am I doing? Rock the block style. It's an improv class, and this pattern here is made out of individual blocks. They're 6-inch square, and each block is the same, using the same process, but each block is different. So we'll go through the process of making all of these blocks, and then what I really have to offer is a way of arranging them. I'll be offering a lot of help on how to arrange these blocks that you made using this process that I invented. That's really just an improv kind of a recipe, some people call it. The third day, I'm going to be teaching a class called Creative Design. And I'll be teaching some of these techniques with this small quilt here. Does it show up? Am I in the right spot?
Yep. Yeah. Looks good.
Oh, good. This is a quilt called Riptide. And we'll be making these long, beautiful points, once again, freehand with no templates. Very simple process, how to go around corners like this. Be using some bias tape and alternative bias tape processes. We'll be doing some freehand piecing like I have up here in all this striped material. And every quilt is going to look different. It's hard to make a sample for this class because everybody is going to do something different. But I'll be leading you through that process with some of my favorite techniques. I'm going to be doing a couple talks. One of them is the story behind the quilts, the stories behind the quilts. So um, my quilts are all different. They're all about 6 feet square. You can see here. It's there. I think of them as human size, and they all have a theme. Like the theme of this one in particular, I can is as an example. The theme of this one occurred to me when the House of Representatives lost the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. He was fired, basically. And it took him weeks to to come up with a new Speaker of the House everybody could vote in. And at that time, I kept hearing on the news people in the House of Representatives saying, we've got to find a path forward. We've got to find a path forward. So I made this quilt called The Path Forward. And it's, as you can see, it's a path forward. And the quilting here, all of my quilts have specially designed quilting, and the quilting here is a maze. You can see it's a path forward through the maze. See, the idea is it's kind of humorous that way. Uh, it, you know, it can be humorous like that. See, path forward. Uh, excuse me. Here's one called Lost Village. This meeting is being recorded. Okay, I'll tell it okay. And each one of my quilts has a theme. So I'll be showing quilts. This one is called Variants. It's about the variants of the virus that guided our lives for several years. Here's one called Writer's Room that I made during the strike, the writers' strike in Hollywood. Here's one called Extra Tropical. It's about the extratropical rain events that we've been having the last few years. When I was a kid, I don't remember having atmospheric rivers, but we've been having atmospheric rivers, and some of them are called extratropical. I have a whole lot of quilts hanging up on my rack here, and I'll have pictures of quilts, and I'll have actual quilts, and I'll have my guitar, and I'll be playing, and I have another lecture, but I can't remember what it is. But it'll be about quilts. Is there any questions? Are there any questions? I mean to say, somebody has something in the chat. Exciting. It sounds like bold prints and solids would be best for the fabric. Yes, that's correct, Brenda. Exactly. One of my theories is that I don't like to use fabric that's designed to go together. If I use, say, K facet fabrics or my friend Tula Pink's fabrics, then if I use all of those fabrics, they're designed to go together, and they're designed to look like K for Tula Pink, and so that when I finish my quilt, it's going to look like one of their quilts. And what I want quilts that look like only mine. And so my students, I try to get to bring quilt fabrics that don't go together, fabrics that are not from the same collection, and fabrics especially that you wouldn't think you could use in the same quilt. Any other questions? Is there anything else anybody wants to know? Questions of a personal nature?
There's one in the chat says
Uh,
creative design, and it sounds like both pricks and dealt with that.
Uh, I don't know what's happening, but your audio is breaking up for me. Could you repeat that, please?
I've signed up for creative.
Mhm. It keeps cutting out. Somebody says, I think he answered that already. Creative design is going to be the one here with the sharp points and freehand piecing and bias tape. Some of my favorite techniques is what we're going to be doing in there. Brenda wants to know, is it true that you fully complete a quilt before you start another one? Yeah, it is. Um, uh, it's not a matter of philosophy or discipline or anything like that, but I just cannot think about the next thing until I finish this thing. So I only work on one quilt at a time, and I start at the beginning and I make the whole thing, and then I'll bind it or put a facing on it and put a hanging sleeve on it and hang it up on the wall and take a picture. I sweep my studio and then I pull out some new fabric and start the next quilt. And so I only do one at a time. Yeah, I don't have UFOs sitting around. Um, Well, if there's no other questions, then I guess I get to get off work early here and say that I'm really very much looking forward to being in Minnesota. You know, I'm from Michigan, and here I live out in California, where I've been here 30 years, but I'm kind of an alien on the landscape in that I don't know what these trees are supposed to be, and they have palm trees here, and the birds are all different. When I'm in Minnesota or Wisconsin or Michigan, then I know that I'm at home. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing you this summer in Minnesota.
Well,
Thanks
we're
for
looking
having me.
forward to having you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Joe.
You're
And I
welcome.
should mention that Joe is also our banquet speaker
Yes, that's
on
right.
Friday night. So that'll be extra special. And he'll be playing his guitar for us too.
That's right. And singing, and maybe making you sing along with me. Who
Oh
knows?
boy.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you
Thank
then.
you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm having connectivity problems, so I am just going to tell everybody if I cut in and out. I'm going to turn the floor over to Gwen Hanby next. Can we spotlight Gwen? There we go.
Am, can you hear me? I'm
Yeah, yep, we can.
okay, great. I am Gwen Henry. I am from central Minnesota, where it's a whole whopping 2 degrees at this present moment. I am a retired high school English and speech teacher, which is a big part of how I got into my fussy cutting quilting. So it's going to be kind of a whole 180 from what Joe was just talking about. I tend to be very fussy cutting actually with my material. And you'll start with my fussy cutting class to look at material a whole new way. One of the reasons I got into English paper piecing or EPP is because it's relaxing and it's therapeutic to take and portable so you can take it with you. So, as a high school English teacher, I had to use a lot of words during the day with my students. And when I would come home in the evening, I would want to be touching fabric. I would want to be in my quilt cave, but my husband also wanted to have time with me. So I found by doing the English paper piecing that I could be in the living room and conversing with him. It also was a portable way that when I was at a speech meet and judging and I had time downtime, I could also be working on projects. So part of doing English paper piecing, you make a history with your project for where you've been when you've been working on it. I'm also able to do it in my car. So I have my cute little travel bag that when we do a quick road trip or even just down the road for a shopping trip, I can take that with me and be working on projects. So I've been at this English paper piecing about 15 years. I also do make regular traditional quilts with my domestic machine. So when I'm talking about fussy cutting, we can take a fabric like this and we can cut our hexies like this out of this fabric, which is kind of cute. But we
Mhm.
can also take this fabric and focus in on, say, this little yellow guy and cut just the little yellow guys. And we could make a really fun grandmother's flower garden. We could also focus in on the red one and we can cut out all the red ones and make a really fun red grandmother's flower garden. So you start to look at fabric, as I said, totally different. We could even go another step and go with the green here, and we end up with this one. And just for fun, we could also do the owls. So that's part of the fussy cutting. I tend to look at fabric and see what I can make out of it. Does it need to be this busy of a fabric? Not at all. You can take what I think this one was really fun. You can tell by looking at the middle what that actually is martini glasses. So you start to look at fabric and you get this secondary design in the middle and get very creative and just get to play with the colors. So that's another thing that I could do in the evenings. I could go home, get in my quilt cave for a half hour or so and kit up, cut out some little fancy shapes. And again, looking at some other possibilities. Valentine's Day is coming up. You could take some Valentine fabric and make some cute little Valentine gnomes. Notice again, it's not a totally complicated or just a two-tone fabric and come up with this one, or a really crazy herringbone and come up with this one. So these are some of the fun things that you can do. And yes, your fabric does start to look like Swiss cheese, but I feel when you cut out a traditional quilt, you also have a lot of extra fabric. So it kind of equals out. So out of that fabric, I also created these and a whole piece like this. So again, cutting out of the fabric. One of my greatest accomplishments with fussy cutting was the La Pascalia, where I've cut out my owls and my whole quilt is fussy cut. So I'm hoping people will come with an open mind and get excited about doing fussy cutting with English paper piecing and walk away feeling that they've accomplished something for the day. The other class I'm really excited about taking is another huge passion of mine, and it's called Stretches for Stitchers. So the purpose of this interactive class is to get you up and out of your sewing chair and do some stretches so you can return to your chair and be more creative. So we'll do some gentle stretching literally during the class, during the 1 hour lecture, that I will give you some tips on how to get up and do some stretches. I did take Yoga Alliance training, and one of the reasons I took that also was part of as my teaching. Um, Thank you. I was finding that I needed yoga. I was teaching at an alternative learning school, which I totally loved working with these children who didn't fit in a traditional school. And I found after my training that I could incorporate it with these students as well. And that gave them a coping skill to learn to breathe and relax. And by breathing and relaxing, which we do every day, it increases our calmness. So that is what I have to present. And again, don't be intimidated. We don't need a yoga mat. We'll be doing a lot from our chairs. There will be some standing involved, and it's always do what you can do. So if anyone has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to take those. Okay. Well, I look forward to being in St. Cloud in June. And thank you for this opportunity to share about my classes.
Thank you, Gwen. One comment was best yoga breathing class ever. High reviews last year from those in the yoga class.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is, I called it yoga and I changed it this year to not intimidate people thinking it's
Uh-huh.
yoga, but we do some yoga hatha poses. But mostly I like to teach people how to breathe. So it's not just an inhale and exhale, it just is a real calming. And then you do get a final total savasana at the end that you will walk away totally rested and ready to be creative in your quilt caves. So thank you.
That sounds wonderful. I think I could use that. I know I really tend to, whenever I change emotion, I have to tell myself to breathe.
Yeah,
So I think that might be a good class for me.
one of the tricks is too is setting that timer in the other room. So you have to get out of your sewing room to go shut the timer off. So that
That's a good
acts as a
idea.
reminder. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it works.
Great. Thank you very much, Gwen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else have a question. If not, we'll move on to Kelly McKenzie.
8 minutes, you did.
There you go. Go ahead, Kelly. You're in the spotlight. And you're muted. Unmute.
I unmuted and then something happened on my computer, so I'm not the best at computers. But anyway, I'm Kelly McKenzie, and I currently live in North Carolina. I'm originally from Mississippi and had a quilt shop for 6 years. Realized that owning a shop was not for me with small children, so I did end up selling it and then going to work for Janome. Of course, I think they're the best sewing machines in the world. I've been working for them for 11 years now. But in the process, I learned my passion was long arm quilting. I started out not even quilting at all. And now here I am as a long arm quilter. So all of my classes that I will be teaching, which will be 3 different ones, are all long arm based. We will be sewing on a 20-inch machine, and there will be computerized quilting on some of the classes. So the first one that I would like to talk about, I'll be teaching it 3 times, and it's called Long Arm Quilting from A to Z. Someone that's never touched a long arm before can take this class, and someone that's been quilting for years and wants to learn new quilting motifs can take this class. So it's truly a class for all. To kind of give you an idea of what it'll be, everybody will leave with a small panel of a sample of all the different motifs that I teach you. In the class, I kind of think of the alphabet when teaching you all the different motifs. So we'll be like writing C's and writing S's. And so we'll just be writing letters that we learned when we were in kindergarten, and we'll turn them into beautiful things. I like to say that I build it all the way up to graffiti quilting or doodling. That's what I love to do. I like to not have to be so structured with my quilting. I like to be free to do whatever I want. So just to show you like kind of what you'll end up doing by the end of class, I hope this shows up. This is a quilt that I have graffiti quilted on. You can see there's no rhyme or reason. This is actually the very first quilt I ever graffiti quilted on. It's still one of my favorites. And then we're going to do some more difficult things, but it's not going to be difficult in the class, such as pebbling. I'm going to show you some tricks to learning how to do pebbles. But when you finish class, you will go home with a panel that's this size with all the different techniques that you learned in that class. That way you can go home and say, look what I did. I actually can do this if you think you can't. I'm one of those that cannot quilt on a domestic machine. The ones of you that can are superheroes in my book. I can't do it. So I have to be able to move the pencil and not the paper. The other class that I will be teaching is called Stitch Like a Pro, and it's where we will be doing computerized quilting. You also will get a panel to go home with of all the different things that you learn. You're going to be able to see how to do perfect quilting for those of us that are OCD. I am not, but I can teach to OCD people. So you'll love this class if you are. And in this class, you'll get more structured quilting. This is a little bit of a sample of some of the quilting things that we will be doing in that class. But your panel that you will go home with will look like, you'll see you're going to learn several different things in that class. We'll do all different kinds of shapes. And learn how to combine designs to make new designs, learn how to do combine designs to make border designs, all kinds of cool stuff. So that is my Stitch Like a Pro, and I will be teaching that twice while I'm there. And then the last class I'll be teaching is a Quilt as You Go class. So in this class, you will be making a baby size quilt from start to finish. But the key to this class is that you have to have everything pre-cut before you come. So it's very, very vitally important that you do that. But this is what I'll stand up so I can show you a little bit better. This is what the quilt will look like. It is best to use solid fabrics for this class. I did not making this sample, but this is what the class sample looks like. You can look at it that way or this way. Whichever one is pleasing to your eye. So I recommend not picking out directional fabrics if you are going to use fabrics with designs on them. We will piece, we'll flip, we'll pick a design and we'll quilt that out and we'll continue until we've done an entire quilt. It's a very gratifying class because you walk out with a finished product minus the binding, which I hate binding. So most of my quilts don't even have binding on them. I just say I'm going to do it later and then it never gets done. So that is my Quilt as You Go on a long arm class, and I will be teaching that class twice. I feel like I did not talk long enough, but those are my 3 classes. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. No questions? Oh, one last thing. It is best if you do take my A to Z class, where we're free motion quilting, to bring a notebook and paper so that you can practice before you do it on the fabric. I've noticed that doodling makes me go to my machine and quilt so much better. So that is a tip. Are people sharing?
That makes sense.
People will be, great question. People will be sharing one long arm. Like, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. 2 people will share one long arm. There's going to be plenty of time for everyone to finish everything that they do. The only class that will not be sharing a long arm will be the Quilt as You Go class, because it's just impossible to be able to share that class and get done. Do you use a Pro Stitcher in any classes? I use the Pro Stitcher in all the computerized classes, which is Stitch Like a Pro and Quilt as You Go. So both of those will be using the Pro Stitcher.
So the A to Z class is free motion.
That's the only free motion class I'm doing. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I know nothing about long arms other than I've seen them in the booth at shows. And you said it's a 20-inch. Can you explain what that is?
So it's the Quilt Maker Pro 20 by Janome, and the 20 means that from the back of the machine to the needle is 20 inches. People will say that is your quilting space, but truly that's not. That's the whole distance, and you will have some of that space eaten up by the quilt being advanced.
Okay.
I like to tell people to always take the throat space of the machine that you have and minus 6 inches, and that's how the biggest depth that you can do on a king size quilt on that machine. But yes, it will be so much fun. You should take the class if you don't know how to long arm quilt and you've never touched one before.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
But also in that class, you'll learn things that you just need to know if you are a long arm quilter, like understanding tension.
Uh-huh.
And we actually will load the frame in that class. So you'll get a lot of like helpful things to pick up on for those that have never touched one before.
And for that class, the Stitch Like a Pro and A to Z, there's a kit that will be provided, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's just the
There's the kit
Quilt
for
as You
the
Go on
pro.
whether you bring your own fabric.
Yes, already cut.
All right. And what about batting?
That is on the supply list also, yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question before we move on?
Mine isn't a question. I just am very excited that this has all come together.
And I am sure that your classes are all going to fill quite quickly.
I hope so. Thank
They
you.
will. They will.
Can
Well,
you?
we're looking forward to having you. We're looking forward to having everyone, but
Yep.
yes, I know Merle's worked very hard on getting this work going for,
Kelly,
we haven't had a long arm class in a while, so
Kelly,
thank
can
you
you
so
say a
much,
little bit
Kelly.
more about the fa-
Oh, I don't hear you.
Oh.
Will you talk again? Say that again.
Can you say a little bit more about the fabric for the Quilt as you go class?
Yes, so it is I mean, to show it off better would be using solid fabrics. If you do pick out fabrics that are printed, then I would pick non-directional things, such as what I had, just like a geometric thing, so it didn't matter if I looked at it this way or this way. And then just a tip, I always like my backings to be very busy. That way, if you ever have any thread breaks or tension issues, sometimes that camouflages them. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Great, thanks very much, Kelly.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And lastly, we'll have Lisa Thorpe up. Lisa,
Hi. Are you gonna spotlight me? There we go.
you are spotlighted, yes.
I'm here. Hi, everybody. I got to meet a fair number of you when I did a lecture a couple months ago on photo to fabric and using your phone or your tablet to create fabric designs. And I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about that in a couple of the workshops I'm doing. So I'm a mixed media fabric artist. I work in fabric and paper, whatever I want, really. And I do a lot of creating my own fabrics, either by printing photographs or hand carving stamps or marbleizing, and all those things I like to put into my repertoire. So I am teaching two full day workshops, one half day workshop, and a lecture. So I'm going to put on my overhead camera just to show you. The first class of the week is backyard birds. And in the lecture that I did, I showed you how to take a photograph of, in this case, a bird and put it in a watercolor app and print it out on fabric. I provide all the birds, but I will show you how to do it so you can print it out at home on your own inkjet printer if you have one. But I'll bring all the birds. You get to choose your bird. I have at least 25 or more different birds to choose from. You get a kit with a 11 by 14 backing, some hand stamped fabrics that I've created, and a bird and a feather. The kits have a bird in them, but you can switch them out or you can make your own kit. So there's all the options available to you. In the end, by the end of the day, you will create a small fabric collage, again, 11 by 14. This is raw edge stitch. We're not worrying about turning it under. We're never going to wash this. This is going to go in a frame. And here's a couple examples. And some with hand stitch, some with machine stitch. So there'll be a mix of both or whatever you prefer. I'm going to share my screen here and just show you a couple other things. This is just an image of all the various birds and available to you when you come to the class. Here's that J that I showed you. This is what a kit looks like with not the background fabric, but these are papers and hand printed fabrics and things to use. You can choose to leave your bird in the background or fussy cut it out, either one, and I'll show you about both. This is just an example of a different J cut out of its background, And here's that same J in the background. So whichever you prefer or how comfortable you feel with free motion stitch, which if you fussy cut your bird out, you'll need to free motion stitch them, or you can leave them in the background like this one. I'm going to show you a few student examples so you can see this is can be very successful for everyone. You bring some fun fabrics, batiks are nice, or some hand printed fabrics maybe that you've made, and that's a great way to use them. So that shows success with that class. Let me move on to the next one. The next class is photo fascination. And again, this is using this time you get to use photographs in your phone, and I will bring my printer, my inkjet printer, and you will print out some images that you choose with my guidance on fabric. I'll have cotton and I'll have some silk. And then we'll get to play around with the idea of free motion stitch. So here's the photograph of the chair, and then I fused another photograph of that same chair on the back and then free motion stitch so that it's a stitch chair on the front, and then some hand stitch and all kinds of techniques that I'll show you. Here's another one. I'll bring some gel pens and we can do some writing on the fabric. And if you don't have photographs that you want to use, I'll have some for you. Or I always have lots of little bird images that you can use. Here's a photograph here printed on cheesecloth, and that'll be an option, just a black and white photo of flowers. So it's kind of an interesting way to experiment with photographs. I'm going to stop the share here for a second and go back to my overhead so that I can just show you those pieces a little bit up close and personal. So maybe you can see it better. So here's the printout of that chair. This was a chair that I took a photograph of with a deep shadow and then manipulated it in an app. And we'll talk about that in the class, how to play with different apps and then print those out and use them in a simple collage like this. And then you can see maybe a little bit better how that I fused that to the back and use that as the stitch guide to create this free motion design here. Then another class, this is a half-day class, which is about playing with Derwent Inktense pencils. I will provide some practice fabric like this to play around and learn how to use the pencils that you color with the pencils. Some of you might have used these. You color with the pencils just like you would on paper, but then this is golden fabric medium. And once you use this, then, and it dries and you heat set it, it's washable. And you can see how when I add the liquid, the intensity of the color really comes out. So we'll play around with Inktense pencils. I'll teach you some techniques I've learned to blend and get really vibrant colors. And then you get to choose one of 3 panels to play with. So this is my fruits and vegetable panel. There's birds. I guess you can probably tell I love birds. Bird panel, like this one. And then there's a mandala pattern, like this one. So you'll get to choose one of those 3 panels. And after we do our practice, like this, we'll move on to the fabric panel of your choice. My lecture, let's get this back to me, maybe, yeah. My lecture is on surface design and using some of the things that are behind me here, carving stamps, marbling, and monoprint. And my lecture will cover all three of those, and you'll get a handout with lots of details of all the materials you need, and I have little videos of how each one's done, and you'll get a little peek into that kind of work. So, that's my 4 offerings, and I'm looking forward to meeting you there. So if there's any questions, this would be a great time. And I can show you something again if I talk too fast through it or whatever. Let me see if there's anything in the chat.
I don't see anything in the chat. Does anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question of Lisa?
Yeah, feel free to unmute. Nice.
Oh, someone's asking if they need to purchase pencils, the Inktense pencils.
Yes, and that's on your supply list when you everything else is supplied. I bring the brushes and the medium and the fabric panels as part of your kit, but the pencils come in. Where did I hide that? A set like this size is perfectly fine. If you a lot of people already have these, have played around with them. I'll have some there, so if you're really like, I don't want to buy one more new thing, if you're willing to share, I'll have a couple of sets for a share table. But if you want to have exclusive use of just your pencils, then get yourself a set. This set of 12 is perfectly fine. They have huge sets, and the bigger the set, the more expensive they are. But this 12 color set is a perfectly perfect good start.
That makes sense. And I think you can purchase those at almost any place like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, or I know
Yeah.
Blick's has them too.
The important thing to make sure it says Inktense. So there's different watercolor pencils, but this brand, DeWent Inktense, is the one that's going to be permanent and washable. Okay. Anything else out there?
No, I don't have any other questions myself.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions they want to pipe in with? Otherwise, I think we'll end for the night. Thank you, Joe, Gwen, Kelly, and Lisa. I think you
Thank
all did
you.
a great presentation of your classes, and we look forward to seeing you. Exciting opportunities. There's so
Yeah,
many classes. Every time I attend one of these, I go, oh, I want to take that and that and that. Wait, I can't take all of those at once.
a good diversity, a lot of good things to sample from. I'll see
Yes,
you all in June.
great. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, and good night.